Hello class, so we're going to talk about light logic. What is light logic? Light logic is a study of how light logically falls on forms to create lights and shadows. Okay, it's how light falls on objects, create differences in value. Okay, and the reason we're studying this is so that we could learn to create the illusion of three-dimensional form. Okay, if you remember, we're drawing on a two-dimensional surface. Okay, but we can create the illusion of three-dimensional form through value. And our understanding of light logic will help us with this. Okay, the most basic division of values on an object is between lights and shadows. Lights are formed on areas where light hits directly. Okay, look right here. Shadows are formed on areas untouched by direct light. Right here, right here. Okay. Now light still hits the shadow section. It just hits it indirectly. Okay, hits other surfaces and other objects, and then hits this object. Within the lights, we have the highlight and the halftones. The highlight is the lightest value on the object, and the halftones are a little bit darker. There shouldn't be any values that are lighter than the highlight. The shadow line is the imaginary line that separates the lights from the shadows. Now the important thing to remember with the shadow line is how soft or hard it looks. Okay, in some cases, depending on the light source, you can have a very soft and fuzzy shadow line. In other cases, you may have a sharper shadow line. Okay, so look for this and depict it how you see it. Okay, now there's two types of shadows. There's the form shadow and the cast shadow. The form shadow is formed on the form. Okay, it's right here. The cast shadow is formed where an object blocks light from reaching another object or surface. Okay, right here. Okay, within the form shadow, you have the shadow core, and this is the darkest part of the form shadow. And then you have reflected light. And this is where light hits one surface or object and bounces back onto the object in question. Okay, and that's what you see right here. An important note, the reflected light should never be lighter than anything on the light section. And this should make sense. The reflected light is indirect light. It's bouncing off one surface onto the object, where everything in the light section is direct light. So it's going to be lighter. Okay, now let's talk about the cast shadows. Okay, cast shadows being where an object blocks light from reaching another object or surface. The important thing to note with the cast shadow is that it's usually darkest right underneath the object, and then it usually gets lighter the farther away from the object it goes. Another important note is the edge quality. Near the object, it's usually sharper. The farther away from the object, it usually gets softer. And lastly, the shape of the cast shadow depends on the direction of the light source. If the light is directly above the object, you're going to get a very small cast shadow. Okay, that's right underneath it. If the light source is, way over here, then your cast shadow is going to be much longer. So the shape of the cast shadow depends on A, the shape of the object, but also B, the direction of the light source. Now a final note. When drawing, you should always draw the values that you see. Our study of light logic is meant to help bring your attention to these components so you can draw them. But if you don't see them, then don't draw them. In some cases, for example, with reflected light, there may not be reflected light, so don't draw it. Okay? But our study of light logic will help us to bring attention to these possible components. Okay, so we have a cone here, and we have the light section right here. Okay, and then we have the shadow section right here. And one thing I wanted to show you is how the objects that are around it can affect the reflected light in the shadow section. So if I get this envelope, just a regular envelope, okay, and I place it near the back side, do you see how there's reflected light that's formed on this side now? Okay? And it disappears when I take it away. Okay, and there's still, I mean, there is a very subtle reflected light that's still present on here from the light that hits the table, but it's definitely much more evident when I bring in the envelope. Okay, and this is the form shadow, and then we have the cast shadow right here. So let's check this out on a piece of toilet or a roll of toilet paper. Okay, you can see we have the form shadow right here. We have the light side right here. Okay, and then looking into the inside of the toilet paper roll, we have the shadow right here, shadow section, and then the light section right here. Okay, and you can see the cast shadow right here. And the same phenomenon applies when I bring in this envelope. You see there's a lot more reflected light. Okay, when I take it away, it disappears to a very subtle reflected light. Okay, and then actually we'll just look at my hand, my arm. Let's see. Okay, so if I'm looking at my arm, you can see right here, we have a shadow section, and right here, we have a light section, okay? And that's the most basic division within light logic, between lights and shadows. And since this is a shadow on my arm, which is the form, it's going to be a form shadow. If you look back here, you can see the cast shadow. Okay, and if we get that same envelope, you'll see reflected light created on my arm. So right now, right before I put the envelope on my next to my arm, there's not very much reflected light. But once I bring the envelope, you start to see a lot more.